The power hum stops at 3 in the morning. You notice it first in the silence where the refrigerator used to murmur, then in the stillness of air that should be moving through vents. The house breathes slower now. So do you. You wait. You listen. You hope it's temporary. The digital clock face stares back blank, a black mirror reflecting nothing. Outside, streetlights stand like dead sentries against a sky that suddenly feels closer, heavier, more aware of your presence beneath it. This isn't speculation, it's the pattern history keeps repeating. Every grid failure, every storm, every moment when the infrastructure we trust dissolves into memory. What you're experiencing has already happened, more than once, to people who thought they were prepared. But the real collapse isn't outside. It's the quiet moment when denial ends. Your mind begins its calculations. How long until the food spoils? How cold the house will get? Whether the phones still work? These are rational thoughts, survival thoughts, the kind of mental inventory humans have been running for thousands of years when familiar systems disappear. Yet something else happens in that first hour of darkness. Something predictable. Something dangerous. Your brain starts making the same psychological error that has cost lives in every disaster, from the Titanic to Hurricane Katrina to the Texas freeze of 2021. You begin filtering reality through the lens of what you want to be true rather than what is actually happening. The technical term is confirmation bias, but the lived experience is simpler. You notice the evidence that suggests everything will return to normal soon. The car still starts, so the problem must be localized. The neighbors haven't panicked, so it can't be that serious. Your phone battery shows 3 bars, so help is still accessible. Meanwhile, your mind quietly dismisses the contradictory signals. The radio reports of widespread outages, the temperature dropping degree by degree, the fact that your neighbor's house is also dark and the one beyond that, and every window you can see from your kitchen. This selective attention isn't weakness. It's human architecture, the way we're built to process overwhelming situations by focusing on manageable pieces. But in a crisis, this same mechanism becomes a trap. While your conscious mind searches for reassurance, the actual emergency continues developing according to its own timeline, indifferent to your psychological comfort. The research shows this pattern across every major disaster. During the first critical hours, people consistently underestimate the severity of their situation. They anchor their decisions to the most optimistic initial assessment. They interpret ambiguous information as supporting their preferred narrative that things aren't as bad as they seem. In the 2021 Texas winter storm, families went to bed assuming the power would return by morning. The grid had failed before and recovered quickly. This felt familiar, manageable, but the psychological anchor of previous experience blinded them to the unprecedented nature of the current crisis. 4 days without heat. Water pipes frozen solid. Supply chains completely severed. The same cognitive error played out in New Orleans before Hurricane Katrina, in the California wildfires, in every pandemic wave where communities assumed their experience would match the optimistic models rather than the catastrophic ones. You wait for warmth that isn't coming. The house grows colder by degrees, but slowly enough that each moment feels tolerable. This is how hypothermia begins, not with dramatic shivers, but with gradual accommodation. Your body adjusts to each small temperature drop, masking the accumulating danger until critical thresholds are crossed. Meanwhile, your decision-making capacity starts to degrade. Cold affects cognition before you realize you're thinking poorly. The part of your brain responsible for executive function, for planning and risk assessment, requires enormous amounts of energy to operate effectively. As your core temperature drops and your glucose reserves diminish, those higher order thinking processes shut down first. This creates a deadly feedback loop. The colder you get, the less capable you become of recognizing how cold you are. The hungrier you become, the less able you are to plan effective food conservation. The more exhausted you grow, the harder it becomes to make the effort required for your own survival. Medical researchers studying emergency room decisions have documented this same pattern. When doctors are fatigued, stressed, or working under time pressure, they consistently anchor to their first diagnostic impression. They seek information that confirms their initial assessment while unconsciously avoiding tests or questions that might contradict it. In one documented case, a patient visited multiple providers for burning foot pain attributed to peripheral neuropathy. Each doctor confirmed the previous diagnosis without conducting the comprehensive examination that would have revealed a complete arterial blockage requiring emergency surgery. The man ultimately lost his leg above the knee. The cognitive bias that caused this medical disaster is identical to the one operating in your cold, dark house. When facing uncertainty and pressure, the human mind defaults to the most psychologically comfortable interpretation of available evidence. But that's not what really breaks first. The numbers reveal a pattern we all follow even now. In crisis simulations, people consistently wait too long before taking decisive action. They spend the critical first hours in information gathering mode, hoping for clarity that never comes. They postpone difficult decisions until those decisions become impossible to implement effectively. Aviation accident investigators see this pattern in black box recordings. Flight crews receiving conflicting instrument readings often spend precious minutes trying to determine which readings are accurate rather than immediately implementing emergency protocols. The desire to understand the situation fully can consume the time needed to survive it. The psychological term is analysis paralysis, but the emotional reality is deeper. Taking action means acknowledging that the crisis is real. It means abandoning the hope that normal life will resume on its own. It means accepting responsibility for your own survival in a situation you never asked to face. So, you hesitate. You gather more information. You wait for someone else to make the first move, to confirm that drastic measures are actually necessary. You maintain the illusion of control by avoiding the actions that would actually give you control. The house grows quieter. The silence has a shape now. The silence has a shape now. This is the calculus that decides who survives and who becomes a statistic, whispered around emergency room coffee machines. Your brain operates like a prediction machine, constantly generating models of what should happen next based on patterns from your past. When the refrigerator hums, you expect it to keep humming. When you flip a switch, you expect light. When you turn a handle, you expect water. But prediction machines break down when the patterns change. The psychological term is representativeness heuristic. Your mind assumes current situations will unfold like similar situations from memory. The problem is that genuine crises are defined by their deviation from normal patterns. They're unprecedented by nature, which means your mental models become actively dangerous guides. In aviation, this cognitive trap appears in every major accident investigation. Pilots receive conflicting instrument readings and spend critical seconds trying to reconcile the data with their expectations rather than immediately implementing emergency protocols. The desire to understand the situation fully consumes the time needed to survive it. The same mechanism operates in your kitchen as you check your phone for the third time in 10 minutes. The screen shows no bars now, but your mind keeps reaching for the familiar pattern where connectivity returns on its own, where problems resolve themselves without requiring difficult decisions from you. Meanwhile, the temperature drops another degree. You don't notice it yet, but your instincts have already decided. Deep in your brainstem, older systems are coming online. The ones that kept your ancestors alive through ice ages and famines and the collapse of civilizations whose names are now forgotten. These systems don't think. They don't rationalize. They simply respond to changes in temperature, light, sound, the subtle chemical signatures that indicate whether your environment is becoming more or less hospitable to human life. Your pupils dilate slightly to gather more available light. Your metabolism shifts to conserve glucose for essential functions. Blood flow redirects away from your extremities toward your core organs. These adjustments happen below the threshold of conscious awareness, your body preparing for a crisis your mind hasn't fully acknowledged yet. But here's where modern humans face a unique disadvantage. Our ancestors lived in environments where physical threats required physical responses. Run from the predator. Build the shelter. Find the food. The gap between recognizing danger and taking effective action was measured in seconds or minutes. Contemporary disasters unfold across hours or days, creating a psychological time trap. The threat is real, but not immediate. The required actions are complex, but not urgent feeling. Your ancient warning systems fire, but the modern context provides no clear target for that activated energy. So you pace. You check the windows. You reorganize the emergency supplies you probably should have organized months ago. Motion without progress, the nervous energy of a mind trying to discharge survival tension through displacement activities. The real emergency continues developing according to its own timeline. Research from the Texas freeze of February 2021 reveals how this psychological mismatch creates systematic decision errors. Interviews with survivors show that most families recognized the severity of the situation within the first few hours. They understood intellectually that the power might stay off for days. They knew the pipes were vulnerable to freezing, yet they waited. They gathered information. They hoped for clarity that wouldn't come until morning, revealed frozen pipes and empty grocery stores and neighbors who hadn't prepared any better than they had. The survival research is unambiguous about this pattern. The families who fared best weren't necessarily the most prepared in terms of supplies or equipment. They were the ones who accepted the reality of their situation fastest and began adapting their behavior immediately rather than waiting for external validation that drastic measures were necessary. This psychological shift from hoping the crisis will resolve itself to accepting responsibility for your own survival represents the most critical decision point in any emergency. It's the moment when you stop being a victim of circumstances and become an active participant in your own rescue. But even knowing this, even understanding the research and the patterns and the predictable ways human psychology fails under pressure, the question remains simple. When the infrastructure you depend on dissolves in a memory, when the familiar systems stop working and the silence has a shape and the temperature keeps dropping degree by degree, what version of yourself emerges? In the phone's fading glow, the room turns silver. Cold, quiet, aware. You notice the pattern too. How your breathing has changed. How your attention has sharpened to focus on the essential rather than the convenient. How something ancient and patient has been waiting inside you for exactly this moment. When the modern world steps aside and older laws reassert themselves, this isn't about becoming someone different. It's about remembering who you were before you outsourced your survival to systems you never really understood. Before you forgot that humans survived ice ages and famines and the collapse of civilizations not through technology or infrastructure, but through adaptation speed and the stubborn refusal to let circumstances decide their fate. The structure fails first, but not the species. When the hum returns, it doesn't sound like safety. It sounds like memory, like something borrowed rather than owned, like a gift you now understand can be taken away. The lights flicker on, but the knowledge remains. The knowledge of how quickly everything familiar can become foreign, how thin the margin is between comfort and crisis, how much of your security was always an illusion maintained by systems beyond your control. The real disaster was never the power going out. It was the moment of recognizing how much you had forgotten about your own capacity to endure. Everything falls, awareness remains. If everything fell tonight, what part of you would survive?